Hello, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the presentation entitled Where Transportation and Infrastructure Meet Economic Development. My name is Derek Smith. I'll be moderating this session. I'm pleased to introduce Bill Jevgeniak, the City of Mesa's Economic Development Director, who has more than 30 years of results-driven vision and leadership in revitalization strategies, public-private partnership opportunities, and business recruitment. Bill leads a team of professionals who have successfully attracted notable projects such as Apple, Google, CMC Steel, Dexcom, and Niagara Bottling. In 2017, the International Economic Development Council recognized Mesa's Office of Economic Development as one of the first 60 accredited economic development organizations in America. Without further ado, Bill.
Thanks, Derek. Good morning, everyone. Hope your Wednesday is off to a great start today. What I'd like to do this morning is really have you think about infrastructure in a little bit of a different way. And by that, it's simply think about infrastructure as an investment. It's an economic stimulus tool. Think about it as shifting the focus from cost to opportunity. So those are some of the basic things as you go through this presentation I want you to think about. But I'm looking forward to getting your feedback on some of this as well. So my job here at the City of Mesa is to create and retain jobs. So this is the vision that we have and leveraging economic development through the investment in infrastructure. Well, that's great. You have to work with your local elected officials and your city management to make sure that money is available to do that. But the global pandemic has really heightened many of these challenges. And infrastructure is one of those. What we're seeing now is that infrastructure could actually help boost the economy and create jobs. Think about that for a minute. If people are out doing roads and streets, wouldn't there be a lot more people working in your communities today? So, but the manufacturing industry is also telling us that reliable infrastructure is essential. And obviously manufacturing and infrastructure sort of need each other. There's a global reshoring effort taking place. And I think what you'll find is as they look to come back from being offshore, where do we put them? Having the infrastructure in place is really an economic development tool for us. Hopefully most people here are going to know where Mesa's at in the East Valley of Greater Phoenix. Today I'm going to talk about two case studies. One is the Elliott Road Tech Corridor, and the other one is the Ray Road Industrial Development. So I'm going to get into a little more detail here for you. This is simply a picture of an assessor's map. This is from 2010, and you can see where the label is for Elliott Road. You see the big circle? That's the old General Motors proving ground. There was nothing really out here. You can see the farms off to the left side. You see the 202 loop go through there, but there's no development. The big picture, again, this was just waiting to happen. So what the first thing we did is this is sort of a planned area development, but growth had really, it started in two phases in this area. So we had some great assets. You see the SRP Browning Receiving Station. You see a Signal Butte Water Treatment Facility. And the Apple building, as it's labeled here, was actually built for First Solar. And we, that time, ran some water and sewer lines. And actually, the engineering staff here at the city did a fantastic job in about 10 months from design to completion of just about 2 miles of water and sewer to accommodate that First Solar deal. But then we stood back and think about what else is in the area. And you can see with that orange and red line all across the top, that's some big power lines. So there's a fiber network that's there as well, and the label sort of lays it out for you. And then the city went and created this overlay zone, which allows people to opt into a zoning district that cuts the amount of time it takes for them to get approval. Now, why is that important? Because the two biggest challenges for me in economic development is really, can I cut the entitlement risk, or can we invest in the proper infrastructure and have that at the doorstep? So that's some of the big items that we think about. This zoning district is really a proactive step. We've used it elsewhere here in the city as well. But that's the first start of it. So think about that as the first phase. And then we get into the actual Elliott Road improvements. And these are more of the most recent things after we've had a couple of wins out here. How do we make this into a full tech corridor? Well, the city completed the branding and visioning and concept plan in 2015. That concept report, for the project, it was really the impetus for getting started and putting the money in place, which was in January of 18. We put 3 through lanes and a bike lane in each direction, raised landscape medians on Elliott and 600 feet north of Chrisman here as well. You can see some of the improvements there on the screen itself. There's also lighting was completed to match much of the Eastmark subdivision, which is off to the south side of that. When the landscape was completed on both sides of the road, traffic signals were modified for wider roadways and to bring it to current standards. New traffic signals were installed as well along, there's some of the signage I just referred to. But really this identity monument is announcing the entrance to the Elliott Road Tech Corridor. And this is not the standard. Matter of fact, if you see the green sign on the picture on the left, that's our standard signage. But for Elliott Road and a few of the streets there, you can see the monument type signage that we have. So again, we created everything from parking lots for park users, street markers, as you can see, and then utilities were also extended to the right-of-way line to avoid future pavement cuts. So the design and construction of the project was completed with transportation bond financing. So different, unique, draws the attention of a lot of different folks from across the country. So this is some of the results that we're seeing of in Elliott Road. So think about, look at that Apple symbol. That's where we started. You can see a few of the other brand names that have located in here as well. You can see some of the others, and SRP has made additional investment coming up along the 202 line. They're bringing additional power, all that east-west power at the northern side of the slide. And then Project Red Hawk is your favorite search engine, if you will. That was their code name. This map purposely does that because of non-disclosure agreements. The one with Apple has expired, so that's a good sign. But what we're seeing is continued investment. I will tell you today, there are over 2 million square feet of industrial activity in this corridor. One of those is just over 1 million square feet alone. But the whole idea here is this is now ripe for growing your tech sectors, you're growing your industrial base, not just logistics, but manufacturers as well. So this is some of the results that we have seen as we've gone through here. And I'm glad to take questions. I'm just going to go on to the next example here as well. These are some of the pictures that we have. Obviously, EdgeCore, this is their building they built. Water treatment plant. I should have mentioned this. So one of the things we've done recently is upgraded the water treatment plant. It's currently pumps 24 million gallons a day. Just this past 60 days, the city manager is actually given the go-ahead to increase that, actually double the capacity of a water treatment plant to 48 million gallons a day. So the engineering staff is hard at work going out and trying to get the engineering started with that. Lower left is the Niagara bottling, which is 400,000+ square feet. And then we actually have a hospital built in there by Dignity Health, and they're planning medical office in there. So it's turning into this full service area to serve the tech companies. The infrastructure continues to grow. And I think that's been a great story for us as well. Ray Road. So off to Ray we go, and Ray sits right here, and this is back in 2010 as well, just below the 202, around the corner from where the Elliott Road Tech Corridor is. And this is really where you go into the entrance to the airport. You can see the airport to the south a little bit. And what we see there is, how do you get around the north side of the airport? So by the insert, you can see the design that we put in place. It really goes from Sossaman Road all the way over to Ellsworth Road, in just south of the 202. So what we're seeing here is, this is, again, the Ray Road corridor and pictures of streets you guys have all seen before. But the general plan, Mesa's general plan, this area to the north of the airport is planned for industrial use. The regional transportation project, it'll mitigate some delays and congestion. But the project will construct that initial roadway of 1 lane in each direction, shoulders and a raised median for the purpose of extending city infrastructure, and access for, obviously, our economic development purposes. That was also funded by a general obligation bond passed by the citizens back in 2008. Road construction at that time, and remember, this is fiscal year 10 and 11, was $1.8 million. We had small utilities of $260,000, and then another $8 million in what I call large utilities. But that road was complete in, January to October of 2010. So think about that for a bit. And then we also did, while we're out there, a little bit of Haas, which this takes you up to connect to the 202. It's an adjoining piece. This was less than $750,000 to make this connection and ready for additional expansion. You can see the intelligent transportation systems that are there as well. But again, we did the basics and allows for the expansion into the future. So this is some of the successes that we've had on Ray Road. This is courtesy of AZ Big Media. They called it back in 2018 the next industrial development hotspot. That has proven to be very true. Print, Save, and Repeat was one of the early adopters out there. Today, the landing is actually in what I call the 3rd phase. So landing at Gateway, 281,000, Class A industrial product. And then the landing 202 was phase 2. And they've started on phase 3, which is the 525,000 square feet, 7 buildings. So you think about all that square footage, and I'm going to show you a map here as well. And then we have different types of uses where Vivo Development created Gallery Park. And I'm going to show that to you here in this slide. That multicolored area on the left side, next, right above the word Ray Road, is actually this mixed-use development. Ray comes in on the south side of that, and you can start to see the couple of buildings that are built there to the north. I will tell you there's another 300,000+ just that little triangle next to Potato Barn and Orset. To the south side of what you're looking at there is the airport's long-term parking. There's something projected on the Airgate Center next to Euro Contempo, and those 2 existing buildings are already full as well. So we're seeing a tremendous amount of activity. Those are some of the buildings that are up. I think we've mentioned Spencer's, the first part of Gallery Park. So we're seeing retail as well as the industrial users, which I think is fantastic. This is the eastern part of Ray Road. So you can see the landing that we talked about, landing first phase, 202's second phase, their 3rd phase, and then you've got a couple other projected expansions there as well. Sunbelt Investments has plotted a few different things. And then we're seeing all the way out, where it goes all the way to Ellsworth Forest. This investment has continued to pay off. I was on the phone last night with a council member talking about some of this industrial that you see on the right side of the frame. as well as activity on the north parcel where it says via west. So when I'm burning the candle at 8 o'clock at night, covering things with elected officials, you can tell things are hopping pretty good. But again, if you start to add some of this up, we've been able to land a couple of significant users. This is pictures of both Orset and the landing projects. I can tell by different color banding on each of the industrial buildings, as well as the next one is Dexcom is an existing medical device manufacturer in Mesa that took this 486,000 square feet of a building and are putting, well, they're doing their own tenant improvements as we speak. And that's there on the right-hand side of your photo. You can see that big picture. So, and there's plenty of activity on that smaller building. Smaller is 118,000 square feet. This is not all logistics, although east side of the valley has typically not seen the logistics play that the west side of the valley is. So now with the completion of the Loop 202 on the south side, think about that, investment in infrastructure has opened this up to a lot more activity around the logistics or transportation hubs, if you will. All right, let's see. I wanted to also jump in here a little bit and talk about Skybridge. Now, Skybridge, Arizona, and this is on the airport, not on Ray Road, but it is on the airport that I had in the picture. So I'm gonna, throw a little bonus action at you. First of all, this will be home to a expedited joint U.S. Customs, U.S.-Mexico Customs inspection facility. This is 360 plus acres on the airport. This will be all leasable. Those two yellow buildings are, one's complete and one's under construction. Just before I got on here, I got a text message from one of the brokers saying they're negotiating on that hangar building. They're the bigger of the two yellow buildings. All utilities are on site. It's all light industrial, aeronautical, non-aeronautical. You've got a hotel looking on here. You'll see logistics and cargo, and retail. So first building broke ground just about a year ago. And I think the whole idea with this is this investment by the group from Mexico on Gateway Airport is huge. And I think that's going to be a big plus. And that's a picture of the first building that Skybridge built. That's about 52,000 square feet on 3.5 acres. So again, that's paying off for us going forward. Okay, so in summary, a couple of takeaways, and Derek's going to be able to field questions for us. But infrastructure investment is about foresight and long-term thinking. So think about that when you're talking to your clients, city engineers, can be talking to city managers, but we need to get out. This economic development takes a long time, sometimes to bring projects in. But when I can look back to 10 years ago, Ray Road didn't exist. It was installed in 2010. Here we are in 2020, and I got millions of square feet in the ground and more coming. So that increased economic competitiveness comment and economic activity is very true, because I will tell you at one point here, not that long ago, right as the pandemic hit, about 80% of the leads we saw for the community were looking for existing buildings. So if you have the infrastructure, you have cut the entitlement risk, the development community tends to come in and go speculative with their developments because we've lowered the risk profile. That's what the cities can do to help with some of that. And I guess I have a final comment. As with any big investment, cost is always an issue, especially considering the capital investment as well as the ongoing maintenance of roads. However, it's the focus shifts that the cost is to the opportunity that's presented. The return on investment is more prominent, if you will, and infrastructure is truly an economic investment that impacts multiple industries, translating into a lot of new jobs. And at the end of the day, that's my job. That's what I get paid for at the City of Mesa. So with that, Derek, I'll let you see if there's any questions out there.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill. This was a good presentation. I do have a question for you coming in from the audience. Does the City of Mesa have future plans to annex the parts of Elliott Road currently maintained by MCDOT?
That all depends on future development. We have talked about the necessary parts of that, but that all depends. When your search engine landed last year, we had to certainly work with Maricopa County and get that piece of the road dedicated to the city. So you'll see more of that, I think, coming into the future, yes.
Awesome, thanks. I also, I have a question for you, Bill. So when you're looking at laying out these public infrastructure projects, what kind of goes on behind the scenes in terms of, you know, the initial investment? Like, what goes into the cost benefit analysis? Do you guys already have an idea of who's going to show up before you kind of look into that, or kind of how does that go, I guess?
So I will tell you, there's usually years of planning that goes into it. Right now, we have a transportation bond that's out to voters here in November. Beth Huning and her team here at the City of Mesa have done a tremendous amount of work leading up to that, getting proper estimates, getting a vision put in place, getting the city manager to sort of lay out what projects are in that piece of the puzzle, if you will, and then getting political support. Because just think of all the 7 or elected officials, and 6 of them here represent districts. They all want a piece of that pie. But I need a lot of infrastructure in Southeast Mesa. How do you balance that? So Beth walks a tightrope, lays out projects. I will tell you, we continue to work with a lot of economic development projects about infrastructure investment. And they're asking, how do we how do we do this in advance? How do we get this done tomorrow versus wait for the bond and then wait for the procurement process and everything else? And we tell them the same thing. It goes back to, you know, if you want to go through the Title 34 process, sure. But for the most part, we lay out a game plan and stick to it. There's always some abilities. And back during the downturn, I remember doing engineering, working on fire stations, had estimates that had enough money proposed for 3 fire stations. We actually bought those cheap enough, they were able to do a 4th. So again, the right planning, the right forethought, laying out a vision, where do you need infrastructure, where will be the most economic impact will be huge for us.
Thank you. All right, we have another question coming in from the audience here. First part, thank you for the presentation. You are right on when you talk about the long-term vision. I was involved in the Northeast Area Development Plan at PMGAA back in 2009 or so with Jacobs. It is great to see economic development coming according to plan. So it's more a comment, but I don't know if you...
Yeah, I appreciate the comment, because it's always nice to see a game plan come together. Now, what I didn't touch on is all the activity going on the airport. And that economic activity plan really talked about activity and really being the airport, the center of the universe, almost like an airtropolis, where you know, there's development that happens around it. You sometimes, like in Denver, their airport's out a long ways away from everything. We're actually trying to do things near the airport. And what we're seeing is people want to be close to the transportation hubs, logistics hubs. But on the airport, there was a big need for proper hangar space. You're seeing that develop today. We had one hangar become available, and we had a client that's, just because of it hit at the right time and had everything it needed. They turned around and opened and closed escrow in about 10 days. And that's the kind of opportunity, if you don't get the right infrastructure, if you don't have, in some cases, chilled water or the right electricity, that could be huge. We're dealing with another one today that's just south of the airport, down near that Skybridge development. Their number one concern is, hey, where's my power coming from? We've got water figured out. We've got roadways figured out. But where would he go with electricity? It's going to cost them about $4 million to get electricity to the site. That's a big obstacle. There's some hesitation now. Now what do I do? Is it going to walk away? That's a $200 million investment in the city of Mesa. Nothing to sneeze at. Why did CMC Steel just recently announce their $300 million investment? Because we had a lot of the infrastructure, including they use a lot of gas. That was already at their doorstep, and we had the ability to expand as they needed. So those are some of the positives that we like to see. And I think this next bond issuance will really help us keep moving forward for another 6 to 10 years.
Another question we have coming in. Is there a cost recovery mechanism for the infrastructure?
Cost recovery mechanism, there's a street maintenance part of our small piece of the puzzle on sales tax. There's a street maintenance component to it, but cost recovery, our cost recovery, and we're a city does not have a general fund property tax. So think about that for a minute. If you build a building, we don't automatically tax you. We have a secondary property tax, which helps to fund different projects. But we don't automatically just tax you like some of the other communities in the valley. So for us, our economic win is really about jobs, and those people who take those jobs in the city of Mesa spend money here, and we get our revenue through sales tax. So really it comes back to creating high value, high wage jobs, and that investment in infrastructure, long-term growth is really trying to stay ahead of the curve. And that's why really developing an economic development vision, both our planning folks, we spend a lot of time about how to get through a process, but I'm often talking to the city manager about the need for infrastructure. I don't think our engineering staff knows how much I talk to him about, can you get roads in here? Can you get water and sewer? And he's got to balance all that. Because while I'm in his ear, he's got an elected official in the other, or other constituents with other needs for parks and other needs to make a complete community. So it's, there's no specific cost recovery method, but we look at jobs being a major driver here. And that's why it's a council strategic initiative as well, is to create more jobs and not be just a bedroom community.
Another one coming in. What zoning limits is Mesa putting on this area? I don't know if that was Eastmark maybe. Will it be residential and tech/retail, or are other types of businesses open to build, such as in the southeast corner of Elliott and Ellsworth?
Oh, southeast corner of Elliott and Ellsworth. Hot topic today. I think the Elliott Tech Corridor we're trying to keep as employment. Residential encroachment is a large threat. I spend a lot of time pushing back on, when they encroach upon employment corridors. What we're finding is sometimes residential doesn't care whether you're under an airport overflight. Doesn't matter that you're next to a loud generator of sorts. So we need to be looking out for that. And I think you're going to continue to see our push. We didn't invest that much in Elliott Road to do more housing. We did it to create jobs. And think about it. Our tech corridor is anchored on one end by, quote, Red Hawk / Google, and the other one by Apple. And your southeast corner of Elliott and Ellsworth is being held out in Brookfield, who took over for DMB, really is thinking about what that vision is. One time back when we first did this, we had the Gaylord Resort earmarked in there. So I'm going back a few years, but that would have been an ideal anchor. The market's changed. Am I going to be able to get 6 stories of office at that corner? Probably not. I will tell you the northeast corner of Elliott and Ellsworth does have retail projected. That's been tied up with a retail developer. Across the street's the hospital that was shown. And then directly to the west of that, you'll probably, between there and the 202, you will actually see additional retail, but you'll see industrial start to develop to the north. Again, access to that power for large manufacturers are important as well. You'll see other uses start to pop up. You're starting to see some different grading. You'll see the data centers continue their activity, but you're starting to see the manufacturers start to show now that we've got some momentum out there as well. Long-winded answer, but I hope that helped. And there's a whole different story south of the airport. And if you got time, I'll go into it, but otherwise I'll give somebody else a chance.
Oh, well, actually that was our last question. We haven't had any more come in. I think we have a little bit less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
So if you want to.
So let me just talk a little bit about the south side of the airport, what the vision is for down there. And just south of the airport, between roughly Sossaman and Ellsworth, that's the Pecos Advanced Manufacturing Zone. We also ran a zoning case. Economic Development ran a zoning case in the city of Mesa that cut that entitlement risk down to about 6 weeks again, from 6 months to 6 weeks. And we also allowed for some increased heights and densities. So we're anxious now. There's quite a bit of capacity from an infrastructure. There's probably going to be need for more, but you'll see that continue to grow in the manufacturing world. And we also have a rail spur designed through there, all the way out across Ellsworth, all the way to our eastern border. Now, that's just going to feed additional investment in industrial, because east of Ellsworth, we start to get into our heavy industrial area. And that is one that we see a lot more of these heavier users. Think of CMC Steel. They're using a micro mill. They're going to build a second micro mill. It's out in that southeast corner. Again, there's a lot of other activity out there, but that rail spur, Union Pacific's going to actually do that. And we're anxious. And there's another investment in infrastructure. Not to think about that. And that's a huge investment when you start talking $60-some million by a private entity to turn around and put a rail spur, because they need to serve customers. So again, I think it's developing a vision, sticking to the vision. You'll see a lot of activity on Ellsworth. We announced the Legacy Sports Park, or they announced the sports park. There's some water questions that have to get resolved there. Entitlement work has to get finished. And then we're talking about roadway, Williams Field Road coming off the State Route 24, which is due to start here in the next 30 days roughly, will be another big component. And I will tell you, a lot of the development community out along that State Route 24 extension has already been in and entitled a lot of land. We've kept residential to the north of the 24, but to below the south side of the 24, you're going to see employment. And that's the key.
Awesome. Well, we're out of time now. Thanks to Bill for the wonderful presentation. Thank you to you all for attending, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the conference.